The legendary 1982 SBVC football team set the modern bar for perfection, only matched by the 1992 squad, both undefeated, with a multitude of great athletes. But our guest, you could say, emerged under the radar screen to be a great JC success story. Eric Swanson joins us. Eric, how did you wind up playing football at Valley College? Please tell us.
Well, Mike, after graduating high school in 1981, I actually went to Valley to play baseball. In 82, I was playing in the winter leagues with the baseball team and didn't quite have the success in baseball that I was hoping for. And long story short, I hung up the cleats and went and got a job like any 19-year-old should be doing at that age. If you're going to school, you go get a part-time job, and that's what I did. I was working out at the Price Club, believe it or not, in Colton, now Costco, of course, and was enjoying it and making a little money and having a good time getting my studies done. And then the following season, or later in the 82 year, I remember my former high school teammate, quarterback, a guy named Kenny Slezak, called me one night.
Yep.
And he says, Eric, what are you doing now? I'm working, going to school. And he says, you should come out and play football here. I'm out here trying out and doing our thing. There's a lot of good players out here. But, based on what I know about you, I think you could come in here and contribute. And my thought at that time was absolutely not. I got a good job. I'm doing my thing. And I told him thanks, but no thanks. A couple nights later, a gentleman who is in my memory bank forever, a guy named Ken Blumenthal, calls me. And Coach Blumenthal says kind of the same thing. Eric, what are you doing? I remember when you played in high school. I think you have the ability to play. Why don't you consider coming out? And, again, I didn't have the interest at that time. I was working. I was having a good time going to school, working, making a little money. And he left me with the phrase that night. And he told me that evening, the first phone call, he says, Eric, I'm just going to leave you with this. You have all your life to work. He goes, I saw you play in high school. You should give this some serious consideration. And so I sat on it for a day or two more, thought about it, and figured, I always felt that I had a burning something in my body telling me I shouldn't be done with this. I should keep playing. Something all along, I always felt I never reached what I felt I should have reached in the sporting world. So I decided to come out and take a look, and Valley was doing their two-a-days at the time. So I come out there and run around for a good couple weeks and felt that, there's a chance I might get some playing time. I can contribute here. And so that's really how it started, is the 82 season at Valley. I came out there as basically, I wasn't contacted. I take that back. Gene Mazzei did show up at my high school one day before I graduated high school and introduced the idea of junior college versus going on to a four-year school, which Valley was the perfect answer for me because I didn't get any looks out of high school. I didn't have any offers of any kind. The Inland Empire was not a recruiting hotbed in 1981. There just wasn't a lot of colleges coming into Pacific High School in San Bernardino, knocking the doors down to sign people. So Valley was the great launching pad for me. I made the error of trying to play baseball. I probably should have went right into football and gave that a go, but live and learn. So that's pretty much how I ended up playing football at Valley College. That 82 season, I came out late. I had a lot of catch up to do. There were a lot of good players on the team, of course, that year. I remember seeing guys and meeting guys that I played against in high school, from Eisenhower to Fontana, Redlands. There were a lot of guys on that team from those schools that, of course, I only knew by name and as a former opponent. But now here I am shoulder to shoulder with these guys. It was a wonderful experience. And I still, when I talk about my career and how it all happened, I go back to Ken Blumenthal and that phone call that evening.
And that's something that one person can make an influence on another person that impacts them for the rest of their life in a positive way. Expand on the 82 team. That team is one that is really, like I said at the beginning, the measuring stick. That and the 92 teams are the two greatest teams record-wise that Valley College has ever had. But it went beyond just going undefeated, untied. I mean, you did some amazing things that year in 82. Talk a little bit about some of the highlights of the 82 team.
Well, I remember our quarterback, Ed Harmio, wasn't a guy that was being recruited as a stay in the pocket, deep throwing quarterback. Ed is a lot like what I would look at Alabama's quarterback right now.
Mm-hmm.
He guided the offense. He wasn't asked to do too much, and he was pretty much asked to take care of the football, hand it off to our outstanding running game. And when we needed a first down and we had 3rd and long or 2nd and long, we threw it when we kind of had to. And that was pretty much our offense. I do remember we had an incredibly dominant offensive line that year that really just mauled people. And that was the basis of our offense. We just beat people up. And then when we had to throw, we did. And we had success doing that.
Was the highlight, or one of the highlights, that bowl game when we beat Riverside City College at RCC? Because that was a great RCC team. I believe they had a Tony Cherry who wound up with the San Francisco 49ers. I mean, just I always remember that was my first bowl game at Valley College. Packed house, San Bernardino on one side, Riverside on the other, and it's just as beautiful a day as it could have been.
Great environment. It was a
more
nice
beautiful when you win, though.
It definitely helped that we won. It was a great environment. The Inland Empire, in those days, that was a very rewarding experience, because I think we actually had hoped Valley, we wanted to go on to a bigger bowl, as we would say. Mm-hmm. And I think they just created that bowl that year for this game, because RCC did have an outstanding year as well. And of course, Valley was unbeaten. And then they just, I think, for travel expenses and all that, it was just a perfect timing for a very good RCC team to play a very good San Bernardino Valley College team. And it was a great event for the Inland Empire in those days.
Sure was.
It sure brought in a lot of scouts, college, 4-year schools to come in and take a look. And, you mentioned the name that not a lot of people know this. I don't even know that Tony Cherry even knows this. But I had the opportunity to play against Tony Cherry in high school, junior college. In college, I played in the Senior Bowl and the East-West Shrine game, and Tony was on the other team in that level. And then in the NFL, when I was with the Cardinals, we played the 49ers in San Francisco. Tony was on that team. And believe it or not, the next year, I go to Canada to play a year up in Canada, and Tony's playing in Canada.
There.
So every single level.
Shadowing you.
Every level of high school imaginable, I played against Tony Cherry. So that's kind of a funny situation with that guy. If I ever meet him again or see him, it'll be fun to talk about that.
Wow, I did not know that. Now, the thing about you made the most out of your community college experience at Valley College. And that's why I always said at the beginning, you're like a prototype for a person going to a junior college and making the most out of it. But then comes the University of Tennessee Volunteers, and that's a life-changing experience. I mean, tell us about how they came in contact with you, how it all went about, and you wound up in Knoxville.
Well, my second year at Valley, we as players knew when any kind of a college scout or coach was at our practice, we knew because we could see their logo on their shirt, we could see a big power T, we could see the UCLA Bruin or the Alabama A. We knew if there was a college scout there, so practice got amped up about 10 levels, and everybody was going at each other, of course, because we wanted to get noticed. And I remember one day there was a guy named, I didn't know him at the time, but his name was Don Dunn. And Don had a white shirt on with the power orange tee, and he was out there actually scouting Ray Hairston, if you remember Ray.
Oh, tremendous player. Yes.
Yeah, defensive end who was being looked at pretty hard in 1983.
Wound up at the University of Illinois, correct me if I'm wrong.
He did, and Illinois was very well known in those days to sign junior college players. Tennessee was not. But he was out there actually taking a look at Ray. Long story short, we obviously practice was ramped up because we all wanted to get a good look from this college scout. And I had a good day at practice. And after practice was over, he approached me, left me a form, and he said, "Eric, do you know who Joey Jones is?" And I said, "Yeah, he's the Alabama wide receiver, number 4. A little white possession receiver, ran about a 4.5 like I did." And everybody, I'm a huge college football fan. I feel I'm very knowledgeable on players who I tried to emulate when I played, and Joey Jones was one of those guys. And he wasn't a real big guy. I was actually taller than Joey Jones. I'm 5'11". I think this guy played at about 5'9". But he came up and he told me, he goes, "You really remind me of Joey Jones." And I took that as a massive compliment. And then he left me this form to fill out, which I did, of course. And later on that year, Walt Harris, who I think a lot of people remember Walt, he was our offensive coordinator at Tennessee in those days, prior to him going on to head coach at Pitt and Stanford and offensive coordinating at Ohio State. But Walt came out about 4 games later, 5 games, and wanted to see me in person and shake my hand and all of that, because the film that Don Dunn, this is a funny story, Don Dunn took some film, asked Coach Mazzei for a couple game films, where in those days we were in the sun all the time, and believe it or not, for a white guy, I tanned pretty well. In those old films, I looked like almost like a black guy. Mm-hmm. And they thought, when I went back on my recruiting trip, they were expecting a black guy to show up. And here I get off the plane in my shorts and flip-flops. And I think it kind of scared them, believe it or not.
Funny thing happened on the way to Tennessee, yeah?
My first thought is, why is this school, known as wide receiver U, recruiting a possession-type receiver, a guy that only runs a 4.5? And I remember watching Tennessee guys like Anthony Hancock, Willie Gault, who's an Olympic sprinter, some of these guys playing at UT. And my first thought is, that's odd that they're recruiting me, but hey, it was a huge compliment. So, of course, I took it serious and just focused on games and practice, tried to get better and to get as many looks as I could from whatever colleges gave me the opportunity.
What an experience. You actually got to play in the National Football League. You had a great experience at Tennessee. You got to play a little bit with the Cardinals. What was the thing that you took from the NFL that you can tell young kids, I mean, as far as being there and going through the whole everything that you went through?
Well, it's going to be a huge cliche, but the NFL is an absolute business. It's an absolute business. Unless you're a absolute big monster star where you can walk in and pretty much control your own destiny, which was not me, of course. I was battling to make the roster every year. I was what is known as a bubble player. There's hundreds of guys like me every year that sign as a free agent or get drafted, which I was drafted in the 7th round in 1986. But I just wanted to go and try to make the team some way, somehow, contribute on special teams, whatever it took. I just wanted a uniform and a hat. And what the NFL left me is what a great experience, a lot of fun. Got to play in places like the Meadowlands in New York and in Washington, D.C., the Redskins. Got to play in some wonderful stadiums, Dallas Cowboys, the old Irving Stadium. Mm-hmm. Got to play in those games. But for me, every day it was a battle to literally be on the team, because as a bubble player, you have to work your tail off and do something extraordinary each week to keep that suit.
Eric Swanson is our guest. Eric, from going to Price Club all the way to Valley, University of Tennessee, volunteer, the NFL. Can you give us just in a quick synopsis what Valley meant to you as far as your experience and how it's helped you being a businessman that you are nowadays?
Well, Valley was my stepping stone. It was my launching pad. I knew, and when I knew when I worked security at the Rams games with you, we used to go down there and wear those yellow jackets that said staff event. Instead of watching the crowd like I was supposed to, I was busy watching the Ram receivers, and whoever the Rams were playing that day, I would watch them. And I didn't tell anybody this because I didn't want to come across in an arrogant fashion, but in my mind, I'm watching these NFL wide receivers, and my first thought is, I can do that. I can do that. I can play at this level. Of course, I hadn't gone to Tennessee at that point, but inside I had this burning desire that I can do that. I can do what these guys are doing. And so, I don't know if I've ever had a chance to thank you, but thanks for letting me work those security at the Rams game, because that's when I got to see these guys, and I knew I can do that.
Wow.
So I just kept working hard, and things worked out, fortunately. But
well,
Valley
Eric,
was absolutely.
Not enough time. We just don't have enough time to share and talk about great times, but it's a pleasure having you here, and I know you're a busy man. We appreciate your time, and thank you for streaming with us, and hope to see you at a couple of our games, man. You're a true Valley legend. We appreciate your time.
Mike, absolutely. And if I'm a junior college coach, I'm scouring the high schools in the Inland Empire, because there's a lot of talent out there that just hasn't been discovered yet. So if any high school players are watching this, if you don't get a 4-year, don't give up. Keep working, because it can happen.
All right, Eric. All the best, buddy. We'll see you down
Thanks,
the
Mike.
road.
Have a good evening.
You too. Eric Swanson, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for streaming with us. We'll see you at the games. So long.